Okay, thanks for joining. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming on for this edition of VCF Live. Joining me in this session today is Josh Townsend, Heath Johnson, and Jim Seneca. Heath and Jim are actually from our technical marketing team. And so what we're going to do today is actually we've got a pretty good agenda. We're going to cover some of the newest innovations and releases that were brought forward with VMware Cloud Foundation. And then we're going to let Jim and Heath actually walk through some of the content that exists within the core.vmware.com site and walk us through that. But before we get started, I just want to spend just a quick, brief time to be able to provide some introductions. Josh, I'm going to let you go first. Introduce yourself, your role, and something that maybe no one knows about you.
Sure. So Josh Townsend, I'm a product marketing manager for VMware Cloud Foundation. I came from the technical marketing team. So Jim and Heath, former colleagues on my previous team, now working with Rick, doing product management again for cloud or product marketing for Cloud Foundation. Let's see, something fun. I don't know. I'll do the firefighter thing. I am a volunteer firefighter in EMT just outside of Washington, D.C. So that occupies my free time and keeps things interesting.
Yeah, it does. I bet. All right, Heath, how about you?
Hey, yeah. So I'm Heath Johnson. I'm on Jim's technical marketing team here and part of the Cloud Foundation team. And so I concentrate mostly on the hybrid cloud stuff. So you see me talking about HCX and all the different components that become part of what we call hybrid cloud. And so we're going to cover that a little bit here today in some demos.
Awesome. And something fun about yourself.
Something about myself. So Josh did firefighter. I'm actually a private pilot. I haven't flown for a couple of years, but I am a licensed private pilot.
Good to know. All right, Jim, how about you?
Jim Seneca. I lead the technical marketing team, so I have the coolest job. I get to manage folks like Heath and formerly Josh, and Josh stole the thing that nobody would know about me that Josh used to work for me. So about 11 years here. Love this job. Something fun about me, I don't know. I actually rebuild old heavy equipment for a hobby, skid steers, backhoes, stuff like that. So that's about it.
There you go. Awesome.
How about you, Rick?
Yeah, just in terms of myself, so I lead the product marketing team for VMware Cloud Foundation. I've been at VMware for 2 years, although because I'm here in the Bay Area, I've been in and around the VMware campus as a partner, sometimes even a competitor of VMware through my career. This is for me is really the perfect role because it's an opportunity to not only focus on solutions and the technology and really stay close to the technology. But, one of the things that I like to do is really just talk about, essentially how can people take this technology and put it into solutions. In terms of something personal about myself that's fun, believe it or not, with a last name like Walsworth, blue eyes, brown hair, I'm actually quarter Hawaiian. My grandfather was born on the Kona coast of the Big Island of Hawaii, and he essentially helped my family come here to the U.S. So that's a little bit about myself. Let's go ahead and get started. So, Josh, I'm actually going to start with you, and let's talk a little bit about the latest VMware Cloud Foundation 4.3 release came out. Some cool innovations within it, but let's kind of double click in terms of what's been delivered and why it's important to our customers.
Absolutely. So I think first and foremost, people think Cloud Foundation, they think, hey, it's all the VMware products together. And it certainly is that. So quick rev of the products that are included in Cloud Foundation. So vSphere and vCenter still 7.0. ESXi is at U2A and vCenter is at P03. Obviously, vSAN comes with that, so vSAN 7.0 Update 2. NSXT is included at version 3.1.3. Workspace ONE Access is at version 3.3.5, and the Vrealize suite is all at 8.4 or 8.4.1 in various patches. So Vrealize Suite Lifecycle Manager, Vrealize Automation, Vrealize Operations, and Vrealize Log Insight. And of course, SDDC Manager, unique to Cloud Foundation, coming in at version 4.3 to correspond to version 4.3 of VCF. So
what does all that get me? Yeah, I mean, that's a great list, but what does that get me?
Yeah, absolutely. So, each of the individual products are obviously amazing, but when you put them together, even more amazing things happen. So, Heath, we'll talk a little bit about how all this fits within hybrid cloud. But if we step back and just take Cloud Foundation as the building block for my on-prem private cloud before we start to bridge into hybrid scenarios, this new version brings a few key capabilities. The first being around workload domain deployment and lifecycle management. So increased flexibility, scalability, more parallel operations, and things like expanding a workload domain. We can build up more clusters simultaneously. So that means we're able to expand our private cloud much more efficiently and much faster. So when workloads demand scale, we can now deliver even faster. On top of that, we're doing some new networking automation capabilities. So networking automation coming in a few different ways. The first, AVNs, application virtual networks. Previously, when we built out a new Cloud Foundation environment, the AVNs were part of that initial day zero bring up operation. That's now moved into a day two operation. So you have more flexibility, more control over when AVNs and edge clusters are deployed within your VCF environment. On top of that, some NSX federation capabilities coming in, a little bit more flexibility in federation, and you probably touching on federation, the global managers for NSX coming in this third category to talk about security and operations enhancements. So one of the operations enhancements is the ability to schedule and better manage your VCF backups within SDDC Manager. And that's going to include the ability to back up those global managers that are part of your federated NSXT environment, especially as you get into those hybrid cloud situations. So those are some of the highlights. One other one on security to throw in there is Fips Compliance. If that's something that you need to adhere to, previously it was a little bit difficult if you were building your own private cloud and piecemealing it. Trying to get Fips enabled on everything, very difficult. With VCF 4.3, very simple option during the bring up where you say, yes, I want Fips compliance, and then all of the products within the stack are configured for Fips compliance when you build starting with VCF 4.3. So I think that's the high level stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly seen a lot of requirements coming from federal government, whatnot, around that Fips compliance. So I think the Fips support is important as you go through that. As I understand, there was also some new backup and restore capabilities that were added into SDDC Manager. You want to double click on that just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the backup restore capabilities I touched on a little bit with the NSX global managers, but beyond that, we now have the ability to better schedule backups. So backup retention capabilities, number of days to retain, and so forth, all scheduled, all within the SDDC Manager UI. And then we're able to better target external backup locations. So you can put your VCF backups where they're most appropriate to you. So SFTP and SSH type backups, you can put them where you want them, including NSX Manager and others. So that's the backup stuff. Maybe a couple other things to hit on there, Rick. Additional capabilities for password rotation built into VCF with 4.3. So now we can manage and rotate the passwords of all of the subcomponents with greater efficiency and again scalability coming in as part of that. The same is true for SSL certificates that are part of those component products within the stack. Being able to enroll, request, renew the certificates for the various products. Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. And Victor, I see Victor posted a question in here. Do we have many federated NSXT VCF customers in production? So as you imagine, that's a great question, by the way. So as you can imagine, these are large global deployments, right? Typically multi-site deployments where you're essentially trying to take your local managers and then push policies out to all the global sites. Previously, previous to 4.3, it has been a manual process to be able to stand those up and get those operations. And while there are still a few manual steps, as Josh just pointed out, we are now automating that. And the requirement that came from those early customers that took the NSXT Federation and put it in their environment and said, look, we really want the ability to be able to automate this more. So we brought a lot of those capabilities in with the VCF 4.3, and we expect based on that it's going to allow many more of our customers to be able to take and automate a lot of those capabilities, and we're going to see, I think, continued adoption as we go forward. But great question. Definitely keep the questions coming, folks. So, great overview, I think, Josh, on 4.3, and certainly something I think a lot of our customers have been looking for in terms of that. Any final thoughts, Josh, in terms of what people can do to be able to get more information, or even go off and download the code?
Yeah, absolutely. So, VMware.com going to be your starting point, and then as we branch off of VMware.com, we'll hear more about this several times, I think, as we're talking here today. But core.vmware.com, core.vmware.com, great place to go to learn more, to get technical details, to see some of the stuff that Heath and Jim will be talking and showing later on in our conversation here today.
Awesome. And then, so the other thing that came alongside the 4.3 release was the validated solutions. And this is kind of it's something new. It's something, obviously, that I think a lot of our customers have been asking for, but give us kind of a snapshot of what are validated solutions and how can customers deploy that with 4.3?
Yeah, so VMware Validated Solutions has a very similar name to something that our teams have been supporting for years, the VMware Validated Designs. All right, so to explain what validated solutions are, maybe take a step back, look at what validated designs are, how they lead to VCF, and then to the solutions. So validated design, when you think of that, essentially is the blueprints for how do we build the SDDC? How do we take all these components, and if we were to manually follow the blueprints, the guide, how could we build up our own SDDC? And those blueprints really helped us in the early days of VCF make sure that the product was scalable, secure, and really the perfect platform for building your hybrid cloud, starting with your on-prem environment. So Cloud Foundation automated a lot of what's in those designs. But then you get into the situation where you start to think, hey, I'm going to deploy a brand new architecture, a brand new full stack private cloud. That's great if you're a brand new company and have nothing existing in your environment, no external policies or governance requirements or authentication mechanisms, and the list goes on and on. So we said, what can we do now that we can automate the full stack, right? It's deployment on day 0 and a lot of the day 1 and day 2 operations. What do we do to help our customers start to integrate Cloud Foundation better with their existing environment and take better advantage of VCF as the platform for their hybrid cloud and do more on top of it? And so we said this is where validated solutions comes in. So validated solutions really are technically validated implementations for doing things on top of VCF, whether it's making your infrastructure resilient and ready to run applications, be it traditional applications or cloud native applications built on Kubernetes or VMware Tanzu, or just doing things that make VCF fit better into your environment. So some of the identity and access controls. And so when we look at what is a validated solution, what is this offering that we now have as a VCF 4.3, what's included in it? So a validated solution brings together architecture and design documents. So some of those things that maybe you were used to with the VVDs, we're carrying forward into validated solutions. So some of the detailed architectures with the design decisions, why did we decide to design it this way instead of that way? And if you're deploying it, why would you decide A versus B or C or D when you have the choice? On top of that, implementation procedures. So step by step, how do you actually implement something? It's guidance, and it's UI-based guidance, right? So if you want to do something within or on top of VCF that's within this validated solution, how do you do it in that step-by-step way? Of course, if you're doing it, how long is it going to take me? So we give you some estimated times to deploy the solution. And then probably the icing on the cake is infrastructure as code, right? How do we accelerate all these things, right? We don't want you to read documentation, look back and forth, click, 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 right? Nobody wants it. You want to be able to do things in a repeatable, efficient way. And so we're offering code samples both through a custom PowerShell module that you can add to your PowerShell MMC and start to crank away to implement these solutions, as well as Terraform code that are both available in our GitHub repository. Quick shout out for the first 6 validated solutions that we released on the 24th when VCF 4.3 went live. These are going to be identity and access management, developer-ready infrastructure, private cloud automation, so all around VRA and that kind of stuff. The NSX Advanced Load Balancer, which came through our Avi acquisition, and then Intelligent Operations Management and Intelligent Logging and Analytics, all for Cloud Foundation. So how do you implement all these things on top of it? Now automated with infrastructure as code, examples, step-by-step guidance, all pretty powerful stuff to get faster time to value once you adopt VCF.
Awesome. And so where does somebody go to get the code? I guess 2 questions. One, where does somebody go to get these validated solutions? And then question 2 is that something that's provided at no charge, or is there any additional cost that's added into that?
Yeah, it's a nice slow pitch for me there, Rick. I appreciate it. It's what is it, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? We're in COVID world. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
So validated solutions are freely available. So anybody can download them, but you do have to be a licensed VCF customer. You have to have SDDC Manager to implement them.
Yep.
But anyone can download them, and they can be found at core.vmware.com again. So go to the Cloud Foundation section, and right up at the top, you'll see a little bubble circle that says Validated Solutions. Click on that, and you can get access to all of the materials that have been developed.
Awesome.
We're headed there in just a minute.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's a great setup for Jim, although Rajesh actually asked a couple questions in here. 2 questions. First one, will VCF 4.3 reduce the number of hardware physical host requirement? No. I mean, there's really no change from that standpoint. As far as I know, I mean, I'll let the technical guys keep me honest here, but I don't think there's been any reduction of the hardware or host required in a VCF environment.
Our minimum footprint is still going to be 4 hosts for management. Yep. That's absolutely best practices from VMware. That allows us to keep 3 hosts running while we're doing maintenance. So the minimum deployment for a consolidated domain, as we'll call it, is going to be 4 hosts. That won't change. And you got the other one, Rick?
Yeah, so the other one, the second question was, what's the upgrade path for 4.3? So in a VCF 4.x environment right now, it's still greenfield, although if you're on 4.0 above, it's a straight upgrade path right to get to 4.3 on there. We are still working on essentially the migration path from 3.x customers. You will see that in the coming months, so stay tuned for that. But there is a active program right now. If anybody's interested in essentially learning more about how you get into that migration program, I'm happy to provide information. But yeah, that is something that we're actively working now, and you will see coming, certainly before Vmworld of this year. But great question. So Jim, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to you. Why don't you talk a little bit about core.vmware.com? So since we already set it up, kind of give us a walkthrough of what it is, what kind of information can I get there, and then how do I learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you shift the share into my screen, please?
You got it.
Okay, so core.vmware.com is the home for technical marketing collateral, as well as the validated solutions from the team I work for. So we have Cloud Foundation, we have vSphere and vSphere with Tanzu, and VMware vSAN. So these are the 3 flagship areas on core.vmware.com. Under Cloud Foundation, this is where my team tends to post everything. Taking a look here, just to start, as Josh pointed out, the VMware validated solutions. I've already got tabs open for most of this. VMware validated solutions are all here. Identity access, developer ready, as Josh pointed out. If you drill into any one of these, developer ready infrastructure, you're going to see the components here: FAQ, solution overview, design objectives, the detailed design, as well as pointers to where to get everything else here, how to implement it, operational guidance, and in here as well as where to get access to GitHub for the actual code snippets if you're going to do this as infrastructure as code. So the validated solutions team has been posting here. This is the most recent batch here, as Josh pointed out, the first 6 to come out. And a case of watch this space for more stuff coming. If we get back to the main page, we have a ribbon bar here, architecture and design, deployment automation. These are commonplace, just breadcrumbs to get back here in navigation. And then we typically feature a number of assets here that we think are topical at the moment. So for example, lifecycle management in VCF is one of the big value points, managing the entire stack. So we have an entire set of demos here, click-through demos to walk through upgrading. This was from this particular set of demos is from VCF 4.1 to 4.2. So Kyle Gleed on my team put together a complete demo set from downloading the bundles, performing a pre-check, scheduling everything, and then actually applying updates to SDDC Manager, NSXT, vCenter, and ESXi. So the entire stack here of the core infrastructure components being upgraded under automation, being schedulable, and you can walk through and see how each of these is performed. If we come back to the top here, another area that's been, we brought up delivering developer-ready infrastructure. This is for doing basically not the full validated solution piece. This is how to get started with Cloud Foundation with Tanzu. So we've got a set of demos here for setting up the workload domain, creating the edge cluster that enables NSXT to handle all of your networking requirements for Tanzu, enabling the workload management components, and then deploying all the rest of the pieces here. This is a click-through demo. If you learn that way, if you want to hear about it, if you want to see it actually happening, we've got another corresponding series here that walks through this in video. So this is, I said, Kyle and my team going through and showing you how to do all this stuff with video. We've got some updated stuff here lately, such as the Kubernetes sizing guide and using the embedded hardware registry. Please poke around here. We don't have to go through each one of these. Heath is on the line here, and I'm going to show you, once he shows his demo, when you want to learn more about HCX or initially setting it up, he's going to reference back to here. This is setting up the initial HCX modules to migrate from like a legacy infrastructure into VCF. Looking at the last couple pieces here, deploying the Vrealize suite. Once again, I'm talking since I see Heath on my screen here. Heath did the heavy lifting here. This is how to deploy the entire Vrealize suite on top of VCF. Notice it says VCF 4.0. This has not fundamentally changed through any of the releases. We do stay on top of pieces with the 4.x release. Most of the things stay exactly the same, so we're able to to keep the demos here. But I said, keep an eye on this space. This is where we post all of our latest content. As we roll out content, you'll see it updated here. Josh and Rick pointed out the 4.3 release just dropped. We've got a pile of new demos coming in here in the next week or so as we finalize post-production on those. And they'll show up and typically show up under featured assets. The last piece I would point out here is our proof of concept team. We have a team of folks that do POCs with customers as part of our sales process. They've gone in and documented how they do a complete proof of concept for 4.1 and 4.2. We're going to see an update for 4.3 here shortly. So if you're curious to see how we run, how our team runs a proof of concept, it's another great asset here. So coming back, I said, visit core.vmware.com in general. There's some spectacular stuff here. VCDR, if you want to get in about Site Recovery Manager, vSAN, whatever. But I said, Cloud Foundation, check back often. We're going to keep putting some great stuff here. Rick, back to you.
That's great. So for somebody coming in, Jim, for the first time, where you start right at that main page, but how would you kind of recommend they go through navigate? Because there's a lot of content up there.
Architecture and design. Use the navigation spheres here across the top are probably a great one. Architecture and design, initial deployment, automation once the thing is running. So architecture and design is actually a series of lightboard videos from one of our tech marketing teams describing how it works, how we do the initial bring up of VCF. And then once you're in, stuff like automation, this is how do I deploy workload domains? How do I deal with clusters and hosts, et cetera? So I'd say from left to right, starting at architecture and design, that is pretty much a pretty solid sequence to follow. Okay.
Perfect. Some good questions coming in, and highly encourage you folks to continue to do that. One of the questions that popped up here is our document summarizing all the new stuff about 4.3. So in the chat, I did put a link to our FAQ. That's certainly where I would start in terms of learning that. And at the front end of that FAQ, there's actually a summary of the net new content that was delivered in 4.3, and then links to be able to go down, double click, and learn more. And as Jim said, as that content starts to get populated up in the tech zone, you'll see more 4.3 content up there as well. So definitely check that out. And then, we can't really talk about futures here, but Dell typically for the VxRail platform, they do have a commitment to be able to deliver functionality on the VxRail platform within about 30 days. So that's, I think, what you're looking at here in terms of this being available on VxRail. You can get it today on ready nodes right away. So if you're using the PowerEdge platform, or quite honestly, any one of our OEM-based ready nodes, you can get access to 4.3 today with those technologies. So great question. Keep them coming. All right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and transition to Heath. Heath, you want to give us kind of a quick overview and then what we're going to see, and then we'll jump right into your demo.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I'll actually address Victor's other question that he posted in there about the Vrealize suite and if it's decoupled from the bill of materials or should I deploy it with the VMware validated solutions? And the answer is you can do both, right? So we actually support deploying from the Vrealize suite from the SDDC manager, and that integrates it as an entire platform, an entire solution. We manage all the patching and upgrading from the SDDC manager when you deploy Vrealize suite from SDDC manager. But some of our customers want to maintain that at a separate pace. And if that's the customer's choice, we actually support installing that separately outside of VMware Cloud Foundation. But you do have to manage it. It is not SDDC aware. So as upgrades go forward, you have to do the work to pay attention to how to upgrade that correctly. So hopefully that helps out Victor understanding where we're at. We can support both methodologies.
Awesome. Good stuff.
All right. So with that, let's talk a little bit about hybrid cloud, right? So from a hybrid cloud perspective, what does the term hybrid mean, right? We have a lot of different cloud terminologies out there, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud. So when I'm talking about hybrid cloud, I'm talking about having the ability to actually move your business applications between any VMware-based cloud. So whether that's from your on-premises data center to another on-premises data center or up to a public cloud provider that's running on VMware Cloud Foundation, or if you even want to go between different public cloud providers that are running VMware Cloud Foundation, we support being able to migrate virtual machines between those. And that's a true hybrid cloud experience. I can move these virtual machines between clouds with no downtime. And so we're going to cover that in a little bit of a demo here today. In this demo, I'm just going to cover a little bit of migrating existing customers that are on an older, maybe a legacy existing vSphere data center, right? And we're going to go through the process of just seeing a migration of how to move those business applications and modernize that private data center into Cloud Foundation so we can get towards that true hybrid cloud experience and connect it to a private cloud or a public cloud as well. All right, so where are we starting out in this demo, right? We've got two environments. On the left here, I've got that existing vSphere environment, and it's got all the business applications, the VMs running on VLAN 1010 and VLAN 1020. On the right here, I've got VMware Cloud Foundation installed, and I've installed HCX, and we've created this HCX service mesh between the two sites with the installation. What we're going to do first is we're going to go through the process of extending those layer 2 networks where the business applications live into VMware Cloud Foundation. So we'll take VLAN 1010 and VLAN 1020 and extend them as layer 2 segments. So they're no longer VLANs. We're going to start adopting software-defined networking inside VMware Cloud Foundation and start to leverage NSX. So once they get migrated in, we're going to actually move the VMs over and start routing our traffic between the virtual machines using the NSX Edge and the gateway and everything over there. So let's take a look at this demo, and we'll jump over to it. Get on the right screen. All right, so here's our existing legacy environment, right? So this is running. Let's take a look up here. And we're running vSphere 6.5 for the vSphere environment for the vCenter. If we take a look at the ESXi host, we're running ESXi version 6. And then we're going to jump into the data center here and take a look at some of the virtual machines. So here we got VLAN 1010, and we'll look at the VMs in here. We've got the Photon router, which is going to be our router or gateway for the VLANs that we have here. And so we got Photon VM01 and Tiny VM1 and 2. And then we can also see Photon router connected on here too. So this is the router that acts as the gateway between both of these VLANs within this lab environment. And we've got a handful of other virtual machines. We're going to move Photon VM01 and Photon VM02 over to Cloud Foundation. So we jump over to Cloud Foundation here, and we can see that we've got 4 ESXi houses, that small management, consolidated management domain deployment. And we can see the HCX components that are installed. The NSX edges are installed, and there's a couple service mesh connectivity components here. These are the HCX components that are installed within the Cloud Foundation environment. And so with that, we'll take a look at the version running here. This is running vSphere 7.0 update 1. So this is one of the new versions of Cloud Foundation that we've got going here. Let's take a look at some of the networking, right? So those applications that we want to move, they're running on VLAN 1010 and 1020. They don't exist here within Cloud Foundation. So we need to extend those networks like we talked about into the Cloud Foundation environment. And we're going to do that through the HCX installation. So jumping back to our legacy environment, we'll go into HCX here. And we're going to extend the network when this loads. All right, so here we've got everything connected. Site pairing is up. And we're going to do the network extension. All right, so we'll create a new network extension within the environment. And this is going to, again, extend layer 2, those 2 layer 2 subnets over to Cloud Foundation. So we'll go grab VLAN 1010, VLAN 1020, hit next. And then we're just going to enter the gateway for both of these VLANs into the environment here. And so this is so HCX can pay attention to what networks are talking and how to forward traffic correctly across both environments. Then we're going to turn on mobility optimized networking. And what this does, it allows routing to be moved for these specific VMs that we're going to move from our old existing vSphere environment into Cloud Foundation. As they get moved over, NSX knows that those VMs are there, and it knows how to route them more efficiently. And we're going to allow them to say, hey, I own the route for these specific virtual machines. And it's going to eliminate hairpin traffic within our environment. So we're going to turn on mobility optimized networking to make things route more efficiently in the environment. And there we go. We've got both networks extended into VMware Cloud Foundation. So if we jump back over to Cloud Foundation, we can now see we've got layer 2 extension, VLAN 1010 and VLAN 1020. And you've got the little orange N here showing you that these are NSX segments. They're not VLANs, right? And they're running on the management transport overlay here within NSX for this environment. So now we can go into migrations, right? We're going to grab some of these virtual machines and move them live over to VMware Cloud Foundation. So we're going to go for Photon VM01 and Photon VM02. We'll give them a name here, and we're going to use our replication assisted vMotion to migrate these virtual machines. So we'll add them to the group. We're going to determine we want these VMs to go to the management cluster within Cloud Foundation. We're going to select the storage. So we're going to use vSAN within the VMware Cloud Foundation environment. And we're going to grab replication assisted vMotion. So here we'll go, these will move these virtual machines live between the 2 environments. We'll expand out some of these details as we kick off the migration here so we can watch things happen. And we're going to kick off a couple of continuous pings here as well within the environment so we can watch things move, right? So we can see we're starting out at about 1 millisecond. Notice both these VMs are on those 2 different VLANs. We're on 1010 and 1020 across these 2 virtual machines. Using replication assisted vMotion, we're going to start out with the base synchronization where it replicates the disks from our source site of legacy vSphere over to Cloud Foundation. Once the disks get in sync, we then switch over to using full vMotion protocols. So we'll stun the virtual machine and then start copying CPU and RAM cycles when we switch over from our existing environment over to Cloud Foundation. So once this one's starting to switch over, and we'll keep an eye on some of the migrations here as it goes across. This is going to take a few seconds for it to flip. But then there's the first one. This one went to 4 to 5 milliseconds, and there's a little ping that dropped during the stun process. of the vMotion protocol happening, and then we'll watch it go from 1 milliseconds here on this one here to, it will jump up to 3 to 4 milliseconds, and there it goes. Now we've got 2 of them migrated from our existing vSphere environment over to VMware Cloud Foundation, just like that. So we'll collapse these windows down here and take a look. First we're going to migrate. We're going to do a little magic here within our demo, and we're going to migrate the rest of the virtual machines. So we grabbed the rest of the VMs in different groups. So Web Application 01 and Tiny VMs, and we've actually moved everything over in the magic of this demo over to Cloud Foundation. And so now we're going to go into hosts and clusters and power off this router, right? So now that everything's evacuated out of our existing legacy vSphere environment, we're going to power off the router that routes the gateways for VLAN 1010 and VLAN 1020. So we'll shut this down. And because nothing's over here, it's not using that router anymore. We've enabled mobility optimized networking. And so we're actually going to see, now that this router's down, we'll jump over and we're going to unextend the networks. So this is normally a highly disruptive process, right? Shutting down the router and actually unextending VLANs, but there's nothing in this environment over there. And we've enabled mobility optimized networking. So the routes are being managed by Cloud Foundation with NSX on the other side. So we'll unextend these networks. Here we've got these 2 checkboxes as I unextend the networks that say connect cloud network to Cloud Edge Gateway after unextending. So what this does is actually swings that gateway that used to live inside that Photon VM on the legacy side, and we're going to swing the gateway and have it owned by Cloud Foundation. So we're going to go ahead and click unextend, move that network gateway over, and now this network will no longer be extended through that HCX service mesh tunnel. So this takes a second for this to process, and while we're doing it, we'll come down here and launch a couple more of these pings, and we can see, even though we've swung everything over, we've not disrupted the network on these virtual machines. They're still pinging. And we'll come down here to Photon VM 01 and take a look, and we can see that this has again been moved over to Cloud Foundation without any drops and pings. Everything's running live within the environment. And so that's just a kind of a quick demo showing us how we've moved, this gateway and moved all those virtual machines and VLANs into Cloud Foundation without downtime, without changing their IPs, without moving a VLAN, right? We've extended this layer 2 network as a segment into Cloud Foundation and started leveraging software-defined networking.
Very cool. And so I don't want to say gloss over it, but one point you made early when you were talking about that is that you started with an environment that was running actually an older version of vSphere, right? It was vSphere 6.5. And then you migrated it. Did you migrate it into a newer version of vSphere?
So we migrated into VMware Cloud Foundation.
Right. Okay. But is it still, but obviously Cloud Foundation running at a newer version. So you essentially up leveled your vSphere.
Exactly.
6.5 to 7.x.
Yeah. So we've made this a real easy way to modernize that existing private data center. Now, some customers might be doing data center consolidation here, right? So you might be moving to a physically separate location. Some customers might not be. They say, oh, let's buy some new servers, rack them, stack them, do this same migration in an existing data center. Either method works. So it doesn't have to be across disparate sites. They can be inside the same data center and still leverage these tools from Cloud Foundation.
Yeah. And then I noticed you were actually grabbing, essentially specific VMs, moving those VMs or groups of VMs over together. I mean, what if I had 100 VMs and I want to do a bulk migration?
Right.
What's the process there?
Yeah. So again, same tools. We showed here just one of the migration methods, just because we're kind of compressed on time here a little bit for this conversation. But if you want to see more of this, I'm going to cover all the migration methods in my Vmworld presentation. So we're going to go through the ability to do cold migrations. We're going to do live migrations with vMotion. We're going to do bulk migrations with HCX bulk, and actually migrate up to 200 virtual machines at a time. And even the one we showed here today, replication-assisted vMotion, we can move up to 200 virtual machines at a time from source to destination without downtime. So we've got a lot of options. come see me at my VMworld presentation. It's
I like it. That's a shameless plug, but I like it.
Exactly. So session 1988. It's a great year.
1988. All right. We'll talk a little bit more about VMworld in a second. But the other thing that I wanted to point out too is that there's also a webcast that's happening on Thursday that I think is covering those same topics, hybrid cloud and the demos too. So look on the VMware.com site. You'll see actually a webcast that's happening live Thursday. And I think you can see a lot of that same content material as well. So great. Appreciate that. Thanks, Martin, for answering Rajesh's question on that. And Heath, Victor basically just threw out a good job. So you got a kudos and the
Victor, come see me at VMworld. We'll show you even more.
Yeah, I wish we could do this VMworld in face to face, but it is what it is. Living in a pandemic. So I think good segue there. Let's talk a little bit about VMworld because it is upcoming. I know everybody that submitted sessions. We're essentially rounding up all the recordings either for that or for the SimuLive sessions. There's actually a couple SimuLive sessions that I do want to point out that is actually happening. We do have essentially John Gilmartin, who is leading a session called Why Hitting Refresh with HCI Should Be Your Modernization Strategy. So that's session ID 2508. And then there's two others I highly recommend. 2500, how vSphere will redefine infrastructure, run apps in a multi-cloud era. That's Kit Colbert's doing that one. And then 2505, VMware's vision for storage and data in a multi-cloud area. So you can tell that multi-cloud is a big portion of what's going to be talked about at VMworld in these coming sessions. The other one that I'll point out, and again, shameless plug here, but Edge 1294, that's actually myself and Arif. We're actually talking about how to start to push Cloud Foundation out to these edge locations. Within that, we're actually including a customer case study that's been done. It was actually one of our early adopters of the VCF remote cluster capability out there, and they've actually leveraged it in their live production environments. And it really helped this customer who's essentially running a series of hospitals in the Middle East. It allows them now to be able to essentially respond to the COVID crisis much faster with those environments. So it's a great customer case study. I always like to throw those customer case studies within this. But as we wrap up here, just want to kind of throw it back to the panelists here. I'll start with Josh. Josh, any final comments?
Yeah, I think probably the big takeaway for everybody, go to core.vmware.com, whether you're interested in VCF, whether you're interested in validated solutions or you want to check out some of the cool stuff. Steal Jim's thunder on plugging it, but there it is, core.vmware.com.
It's your one-stop shop. I like it. And then Heath, what did you just throw up here?
All right, so if you've got a home lab and you want to try out VMware Cloud Foundation, hit some of these URLs we've got here. You can deploy VMware Cloud Foundation inside your home lab with automation. We've got these cool set of scripts that are created by Ben Sire, part of our team on tech marketing here. And it allows you to actually do a full automated deployment of VMware Cloud Foundation inside of a nested lab environment. So we've got some, also, if you need the software for this, right? So you need to be able to download some of the bits for VMware Cloud Foundation. A lot of customers are like, where do I get the bits for this? The best place to do that is through VMUG Advantage, the eval experience, right? So if you subscribe to the VMUG Advantage eval experience, you can actually get a discount for that using the discount code VLC. And that will get you access to the software bits necessary to deploy VMware Cloud Foundation inside your home lab. So definitely check that out.
And Hamza's thrown out some more kudos for the demo there. Everyone loves your demos, Heath. So
awesome.
Love to see it. All right. And this is more information on how to get the bits, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is what we're talking about. Just to get the bits for Cloud Foundation for VLC, we download it from the VMUG Advantage subscription program.
And with a 10% discount for using discount code VLC on your VMUG Advantage, that's how to do it. So
there you go. And so with that, you get additional discounts on training, eval license for a year, $100 off of VMworld, which this year is pretty much free, and then test drive by VMware. So those are some nice value adds in there. Great. All right, Jim, I'm going to go to you. So wrap us up here. Bring us home.
I just want to, Josh already stole my thunder. Core.vmware.com, another program we're doing. If you're active in the sales process right now, if you're working with your account teams on VMware Cloud Foundation, mention the word experience program or experience day. That's what Heath showed today is a live lab. We're actually letting our customer prospects work through as part of the VMware experience program. The same lab is also going to show up, should be right around VMworld as a solution lab. So you're going to see a modernizing IT or modernize your IT type solution lab. We're still finalizing the process around that, but we're trying to make everything we're showing you hands-on capable here. We want you to kick the tires, want you to play with it. Heath brought up VMUG Advantage. That's the way to get into it with the VLC. Hands-on labs is still, a great place to go. Core.vmware.com. And then the last piece, like I said, if you're working with your account teams, talk to them about the experience program. We'll get you in and we can sit you down and run you through a bunch of labs.
Great. Awesome.
Okay.
All right, Heath, what about you?
No, so I covered, I think, everything that I need to talk about. Again, if you want to see more of this, I think we got another event coming up, Rick, like you mentioned. And also, I'm going to cover a lot more of this, again, at VMworld. So definitely check that out.
Awesome. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining here. I love the interaction. So I think the questions really help make this much more real. And kind of bring it forward. I did actually just post in the chat the release notes because someone had asked for some additional information. So again, want to thank our panelists, Heath, Jim, Josh, for joining us today, keeping this lively, keeping it, I think, technical, because the feedback that we're getting is that they want more technical content. So definitely appreciate you guys doing that. And definitely appreciate everybody for joining us today. Hope to see you in next month's VCF Live. We're going to cover some additional topics and lead you right into VMworld. We'll probably do it at the end of September, just before VMworld starts. So we'll actually have previews of some of the content you're going to see at the upcoming virtual VMworld. So again, want to thank everybody for joining. Thank my panelists, and we'll see you next time around. Thanks much.
All right. See you.
Cheers.